Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Carrie Waltz and I share tips, tools, and techniques for the artist in you. And the first thing I want to say today is thank you! If you have just recently found me and subscribed, my channel took off last week like I've never seen. I was in the Smoky Mountains hiking with my husband and I'd come back and get service and I would look and go, oh my word, Brad, look, there was one day I had 1,000 new subscribers. So if you are one of those, thank you. I'm so glad you found me. And I hope what I share with you will continue to inspire you, to encourage you. And I hope by following me on my art journey that you can improve your own. Because what I like to share here are things that have been aha moments for me, just techniques and things that I've learned from others or by trial and error and by making mistakes. By making a lot of mistakes, we learn a lot. And so embrace that and don't be afraid to try something new. And several of you have commented, and I really appreciate you commenting and liking and subscribing. And it really does make my channel grow. So thank you. And today I want to focus on something that I did last week and my current challenge this month. It's in the 2024 April. And I got inspired by a video from Sarah Burns, and she was doing the April plein air challenge. And that means plein air is painting outdoors, and a challenge was to paint or draw each day. Well, didn't have to be outdoors, but the idea is to paint from life. And what I was doing last week was not always painting from life because I was hiking and I didn't have the time necessarily to stop and paint on location. But just my challenge, my focus this month was to develop a daily habit of drawing or painting each day. So when we can focus, intentional focus on something that we want to make a habit, I think that is something that helps you in any area of your life. And art is so therapeutic for me, and I want others to discover how wonderful a habit of creating can be for your life. So let me change the camera and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Just a reminder, there are 2 demos in this particular video, so please stay tuned for both of them and let me know what you think. While I was in the Smokies, I pull out my Smoky Mountain journal that I started a couple of years ago. And this was my first entry of April 7th. This was started in plein air with a teeny tiny pen and then continued when I got back to the our condo that we were staying in. I don't hike and, we hike, but we don't backpack to the point where we take our tent and spend the night outside. I like a bed at night. And then on April 8th, we hiked up to LeConte Lodge. And this was done very quickly in pen with the Elegant Writer, this pen right here. And I'm going to show you how I did that. So that'll be one of the demos today. But another thing I want to share with you is the fact that when I'm trying to develop a daily habit of drawing, one thing that really helped was the fact that one day I just drew out the spread of this. We hiked, it was the same day we hiked. Well, I drew this, the day we hiked up and I painted this. I took pictures of things along the way, and it was 100th year of LeConte Lodge. And I really wanted to celebrate that because one of the reasons why we hiked it this year is because it was the 100th year and we wanted the 100th year t-shirt to prove that we hiked it, because the only way to get that t-shirt is to hike the trail. So we did the Alum Cave Trail, which is one of the prettiest ones. It's also the steepest one, shortest one, but the steepest. I think there's 2,300 feet elevation gain. But when I got back, I just sketched out. The next day, I sketched out what I wanted on this page. And I wanted to balance the bright colors of this sticker over here. So the wet on wet technique is what I used for this. So those are the 2 things that I want to share with you on today's video, is the Elegant Writer, how I did this painting, and a little bit of the wet on wet. If you're new to watercolor, welcome to my channel. If I share anything that is helpful, please tell me what it is that rang true with you. It certainly helps me know where to start and what to work on. But this month I'm focusing on drawing or painting daily, and when I can make it exciting for me, because one of the things about this that makes it exciting is the, oh, will it work? And I'll show you why in just a second. So I'm going to get my paints out and I'll be right back. This is one of my packs that I carry with me, and I'm going to do another video on this to update my favorite watercolor kit. But today what I'm going to focus on is the Elegant Writer as an option for doing something quickly and having a little fun with it. You will need a paper towel or something absorbent, your Elegant Writer. This one is a 2.0, but I buy them in a set of 4 on Amazon. To me, that's the better deal. If I want a wide point, I can lay it down flat. If I want a narrower, skinnier point, I just turn it on its corner. And if I barely touch, I can get a teeny tiny line. So it varies it that way. And then a spritzer or a spray bottle. I like this because it doesn't take up much space. All right, so when I was at Alum Cave, Alum Cave Trail is the trail that we went up. Oh, it was beautiful. We got there before sunrise. It was just first light because we wanted a parking place. And so this is 2.3 miles up the trail, and it's this big bluff of a overhang that you're sitting on this slanted ground of loose dirt. I'm so thankful that they put in a bunch of stairs so that it's not quite the angled walk that it used to be. I feel a little safer now. I did this sketch in, I bet, maybe 5 minutes. So here we go. Real time. I'm not going to speed it up. I was looking at the angle of the edge of the overhang, and I'm just kind of looking at what I've got there. And it was very dark here. It was in the shadows. So that's why I laid my pen kind of sideways or flat, like the calligraphy, to get a darker, and just tried to look at the different levels of rock. And this is kind of a sedimentary hill, a lot of sand in the area, but I wanted this to appear in the shadows. So I just scribbled in with my pen to create what will be the darks. And then there were these 2 trees that were pretty high up on the horizon line from where I was looking. So I'm going to turn my pen to where I'm just touching the corner, because I don't want a heavy, thick line. And I'm just tapping along the directional strokes. You know, the trunk I could go ahead and show you where that's going to be, but then pay attention to the direction of the arms of the branches. Which way do they go? They start going up. Some of them will come towards you. Some of them, they overlap. You don't want to you don't want them solid, because they're not, and just kind of organically skipping around. So then they start moving downward and branching out in that direction. So I'm just kind of quivering my pen, shaking my pen to get little squiggle lines, because that's what how the tree looked. It had just a variety of, and it's a little thicker. This one's closer to me. Actually, both of these are pretty close to me comparative to the other parts of the view. All right, so this is a little bigger. This is on 90 weight paper, 90-pound paper. It's another sketchbook that I have, and I didn't want to put the same image in my Smoky Mountain journal, so when I'm doing demos, I often put it in a different journal. It all depends on what I'm doing. Okay, so there's this tree, and then it just goes off down below, and I'll make it a little thicker, heavier in through here. Then the other one is real close to it, but a little shorter. Sometimes it's easier just to go ahead and put that trunk line so you know that you don't get too crooked as it goes. There's some skips and gaps in some of the trees, so look at them, because it's very organic. And that's the one thing I love about what I'm going to show you here is this tree is going to come to life, and hopefully I won't overspray it, because when you spray this pen and you want tree foliage, it just gives you the coolest organic. Do you see how they're just kind of fuzzy and they're speckled because light's coming through? I mean, it's just so fun. I started this when I was teaching a group of retired retirees. I don't know, they were a variety of at Wesleyan College in Macon, Georgia. It was for lifelong learners, and I was teaching a drawing class there, and I wanted everyone to draw daily. And I was working in pencil at the time, and honestly, I was getting kind of bored at the pencil. And pencil drawings are wonderful, but I just was, yeah, I was bored with it. And so I came across a video, and if I knew which one it was, I would give her credit, but I can't find it at this point. But I came across a video that used this pen. I'd never heard of it before, and I saw what she did, and so I've just taken it and done my own thing with it and just had so much fun. So it made it, I guess the thing that makes it fun is your unknown. You always have a sense of unknown, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. Now I want these trees, but do I want these trees now or later? Because if I put them in now and I wet the background, can I control it enough? So right now I'm going to not do that, because I'm going to show you what you do with these pens and how I can get this background look as well. So the first thing, oh, you also want a water brush, because when I travel and I'm journaling on the go, this is my go-to brush. So first thing I want to do, I want to control this edge of the cliff edge. So I squeeze a little water, quite a bit of water came out, and I'm just going to blur that out because all of this is shadow. This pen is obviously not waterproof. And what I love about it, it has colorful ink. So when the black bleeds, it gives you this bluish tone, and if you dab it and lift it up a little bit, you'll get kind of a pinkish tone. But before I waste too much of that paint, I want to create some distant effects of the sky. And I notice I'm not touching the trees yet. Don't want to do that yet. Touch this. Here's that, I'm careful not to touch the wet edge that's already there. But I'm transferring the ink. So if I want a soft edge in the background where my distant hills are, you have to come back and gently touch the edge, the top edge, and let it blur. Pick up a little more ink down here. This is going to be a closer mountain. It's just down below, but it's darker, so it's closer. Be careful not to touch what's too wet. And because it's closer, you're going to see more I'm going to go ahead and run into this so the illusion of trees. Okay, now you're probably wondering, why did I ignore these? And I'm going to show you why. All right, I don't want to do this tree with this brush. I'm going to let this dry so that when I wet these trees, hopefully they'll blur out and be a little more organic. But now that I have the background behind these trees, I'm going to let it dry, draw those trees, and then spritz all the trees at once. Okay, I put little dots to see if they're going to blur out, and I think they're fine. So I'm going to again, tilt my pen, teeny, teeny, teeny lines. I don't want this tree to be, excuse me, very big. Excuse me, because it's in the distance. Sorry. I want it to be a little bit above. See, I didn't stop right there because that'd be a tangent. So I'm going to take it above that one. So I'm going to make this one a little closer, taller, then it'll be different. It's okay. Who's going to compare? It's my painting. I just want the illusion of where I am and give a hint of foliage in the distance and these trees. Now that I have those in and these ready, I want to determine what do I not want to blur. What do I want to protect? I really like the softness of the sky up here and the little bit of pink that's showing in. I don't want this edge to get wet because then it would blur into that sky. So in order to protect that, you get other paper towels and you cover, or paper of some sort, and you cover what you want to protect. So make sure you do that. I'm going to test my, okay, that sprays pretty good. I'm, again, it's a, make sure you're aiming at the right place. Isn't that cool? Oh, it's so fun. Okay, now take that off. You can try to move some of it around if you want, but honestly, if I move too much, it screws it up. So I'm just going to just take a little bit and just drag it down in here to finish off that. Now, what I don't like here is how, see how dark this is, and then that's not as dark. It's probably because the paper kind of bent when it was wet. This isn't as heavy as I usually use. Okay, I'm going to see if I can pull some of that back to the center. I want the center of that tree to be darker. And I can put my paper down and lift just a touch, but I don't want to lift too much because it's, I just love the organicness of it. So, what do you think? Is that not fun? I want you to try it. And I love even just the raggedness here because that just lets it bleed into the other part of the painting. You can spritz that if you want to. You could cover it this way, but I'm just going to leave it alone and let it go. All right, the other thing I wanted to show you is what I did in, I'll just set that over here on this next page. If you're not familiar with wet on wet and blending colors that merge and play well with each other, I'm going to show you how to do this. One of the things you do need to be aware of is your color wheel. If you don't know color theory at all, I would recommend that you get a color wheel. I have a variety of color wheels. This is a small one that when I was first retired and going to different painting classes, trying to improve my own work, I found this one to be very helpful and it didn't take up much space. So, but recently I found this one that's a keychain, and then it's just kind of fun to find different ways that, you know, things that make you happy. All right, what I'm going to talk about today is colors that play well with each other. Sorry, my cat's crying in the background. I think she wants me to play. This is red, this is green. The opposites on the color wheel, if they're side by side, they help vibrate and create a lot of interest. But if you mix them together, they can dull each other. And if you'll notice, none of these are dull colors. So I don't want to put a red right next to a green because then when they blend together, they'll be dull. But the colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, if you can put those colors together as you go from one color to another, then you'll know that they play well together because they have colors in common. So that's what I mean by playing well, is a color in common. If they have no color in common, like blue-green has no, red-orange has nothing in it that is in the blue-green. So they don't play well together, but they look good beside each other. So what I did here is the green and the red are beside each other. They look good together, but they're not blending together. The yellow and green blend together. And again, it's very close to the red here. The red and orange play well together, but this one's darker, this one's lighter. You want contrast between the colors. So as I created the blur and the shift of color, I was paying attention to what plays well together so it mixes well, and then what I put beside it was going to be something that would contrast and have a nice difference, either in value, that it's dark next to light, or warm next to cool. So that's a good way to also get your contrast. Purple next to a yellow. Those two are across from each other on the color wheel. So I'm going to show you how to do this. It's a lot of fun. You can just do bubble letters or whatever you want. I'm looking at this to see how it's drying. Leave it alone, let it dry. Even the speckles in the background, I think, make it interesting. So I hope you enjoyed that part. We're going to flip the page, and we're going to draw in pencil what I would don't require anything. Okay, I'm gonna let's just do the word love. Everyone, the world needs more love, right? L-O. Used to do this when I was in elementary. Love. World needs now is love, sweet love. Okay, that's good enough. All right. So the first thing I want to tell you about is the colors that I used on this spread. These were new paints to me. When I went to Plein Air South, Michael Harding, who makes amazing paints, was there, and he had a watercolor paint there that I had never had before. So I made a new palette for myself. These are gouache, so that's why they're cracked and dry. They're an opaque type of watercolor. These are Michael Harding watercolor. So I made these by, this was a palette. I just keep that into so that if some of these crack out, they won't fall out. These are half pans that came with the palette. I put the MH for Michael Harding and Vivid Blue, the color, and then I pop them in, and that holds them. So I can, okay, there's also a ring that I can put through my finger, open this up, and I made this key just for my own purposes, because when you deal with real transparent colors, they're very dark, and when they're very dark, it's hard to tell what colors they are. The less transparent, you notice how it's really easy to see what colors these are. It's because they're opaque, and the more opaque, the gouache is much more opaque. That means you can't see through it when you paint. But I like a key so that I can remember what they are. Because even though this one's very, very dark, it paints light because it's a violet. It's not it's not as dark as what I had thought it would be. So the only color that I did not use on this page was my other favorite out of my convenience colors, dioxazine purple. This is one of the colors that I carry with me in my limited palette, and it's QOR, dioxazine purple, and it just gives me this vibrant, deep purple, where this other one is not as deep. It looks about the same, but notice that really dark, okay? And anyway, these are other colors I really like, but I've gotten to where, when I started, I didn't spend much money on the paint because I didn't know if I wanted to. I didn't know I didn't feel worthy. Let me just tell you that. I just didn't feel worthy of spending that kind of money because this tin, well, the tubes that I got here, I got at a good deal because I was at Plein Air South, but this is well over $100, and I just didn't spend that kind of money on myself for something new. This Daniel Smith is over $100, but it's professional. It doesn't take, the thing is, once I started using professional grade, it's like, oh my word, why do I ever want to go back to student grade? Student grade, I can do some wonderful things. I've been really pleased with what I did years ago, but look at the intensity of these colors, and I hardly use any paint at all. So, okay, let's quit talking. Ooh, sorry, turned out my light. All right, so here's my key. It shows me the bright rose that's in gouache, but I don't want to use gouache today. I want to use just watercolor. So the opera rose is very close to that. And let's just play. All right. So I'll put it like this. Hopefully you can see both my palette and the other. All right. So I want a soft transition of color. I want to make sure I have a paper towel so I can clean my brush. I want to note the colors that I'm going to use because I want to use them while they are wet. If you want to wake up your colors, just spritz them just a little bit with water so that when you go into them, they're already damp and will come alive. All right, I'm going to do one letter at a time. So what I'm doing with this brush is I'm just filling in the inside of the line with water. I'm not pressing, see, I'm not pressing at all on this brush. And I think this one actually flows a little more than I like. There's one that I have that I forgot to mark that just gives me a little more paint faster than I want. All right, so let's start with one of my favorite colors, that quinacridone, opera rose. That's what it is, opera rose. All right, so I'm gonna lay that in. Notice that soft edge. Okay, now what's next to red on the color wheel? Orange. So I can lay that in, run right up to it, let it run together. Okay, see how that's already a hard edge? That means my paper is already drying. So I'm going to re-wet my paper as I go. I'm going to go over here, pick up some yellow, throw in that. Look at that intense color, isn't that fun? Now, yellow and pink also play well together. So I'm going to throw in some pink. Just make it a variety. I might come back here and throw in a little bit more color. But as long as it's wet, now if you're putting too much wet into, ooh, I just picked up the lavender. That wasn't smart. I need to do a blue in between. Why? Well, blue and orange probably aren't the best choice because blue and orange neutralize each other. See how dull that got all of a sudden? I probably should have picked a green because green, and I don't know, here's the green. Green and yellow work well together, but oops, green and red, what happens? It's a little dull. That's all right. So I'm having fun with this. Now look, see how that's already dried? I'm going to add more color, more water. And it's okay to have it really watery if you want. It doesn't have to be, wild, crazy, thick color. Sometimes it's fun to leave some of that white in there. Got out of the line a little bit. And you'll come back with a pen at the end. But if you want it to blur, the page has got to be wet. So this paper dries really fast. I'm going to touch that in there because I want it to have a soft edge. So I'm going to leave that. That's the L. I am not going to paint this right now. Why? Because that's wet. If I touch this with the water, it would bleed right into it. So I'm going to skip the O and I'm going to go to the V. There's only one of my Pentals that seems to flow a little faster. I really need to mark it. So I'm tilting my head to see the shine on the paper. If my paper is shiny, I know it's wet enough. Now the trouble with painting this before I paint this is I'm not sure what colors this is going to be. But if I start with the warms here, this one might all be warm colors, but then that's all warm. That's warm up here. So how about I make the warm colors down here and the cool colors up there? So if I have cool colors here, warm colors here, well, we'll just go for it. I'm going to start this one with red. Let me start with red. Okay, whoops. When I tilt my head, that is no longer shiny. See how that doesn't move? I want to wet the paper again. don't believe this is 100% water cotton paper, because 100% cotton will dry slower because of the fibers in the cotton. So if you want your paper to dry slower, then get cotton. All right, what do I want? Let's go with the green again. I kind of like that color blended in with the yellow. And green into the blue. Let's go with this darker blue. It's ultramarine blue. These are what I'm playing with right now are Michael Harding watercolor. Had a lot of fun with them. And okay, see right here where that was too wet? This is what happens when you put too much water in with something that's slightly damp. You get what's called a bloom. It's when the wet water pushes this way. So that's really not what I wanted for this, but hey, it's an example of what happens to watercolor if you don't control the water the way you want to. So I'm going to leave this alone, let it dry. I could come back over here. This is dry enough now, but that is wet. So I'm going to just pause just a minute. Okay, I'm impatient. I'm going to show you another way. If you don't want to pause, if you wet and just leave a tiny bitty edge of unpainted, unwet there, I'll show you. Don't touch what's wet. Leave a tiny gap, and that gap is going to block the water, the paint, from going into that section, because the paint only goes where the paper is wet. Okay, so I'm starting that side, and I want to start that side with the opposite of red is green. So even though I just did green on that other side, I'm going to start that here with that green. Play with the complementary colors. And this is not, as much of a pure green. It's kind of a blue green. Don't remember the name of it. I'd have to look it up. Okay, so what I'm doing now is trying to add the colors as I come around. And if it's not wet enough, see, that's not wet enough, I'm just going to add a little more water while I'm there, instead of trying to do it coming back into it. Now I have to be careful as I get to the toe here. This should be dry enough. Yeah, there we go. All right, so I want something that's going to contrast with that. I'm going to, I think the red, or the rose is another good color right there. So let's do that here. While that's damp, hopefully it's not. You want the same dampness of what's next to it so that you don't get this. That was when the water flooded and it pushed back into the dry, and I'm thinking that might happen here too. But that's why you play with your watercolors when you first get them, even after you get them. It's sometimes you want that bloom. You can make it into flowers or add pen work on top. Do I want something in between those? What would be between pink and green on the color wheel? Well, what's between red and green on the color wheel? There's, see how the color wheel is helpful? Anything in the purple tones. So I could get out, again, it's probably drying too much for me to do this, but I'm going to show you anyway. I'm going to get out that purple, put some of that in there. Just, when it's wet, it's going to take off. And that's kind of cool. I could come back over here now that this is dry, and I can repaint that, but I'll decide after this is dry if I want to do that or not. I might want to just do pen work on top of this and call it a day. Okay. I do like that deep, deep purple, because I always want that somewhere on my palette. Kind of like how that, okay. Now I'm coming back over here. This is dry enough. I'm going to put water again on the inside of my letters. You could do your name. You could do your town. That's just so fun. And if you don't know how to do the bubble letters, print something off on your computer and the font you want and trace it. Don't let your inability or you think you can't draw stopping you from doing things. And actually, drawing is a learned skill, so don't say, oh, I can't do that. I can't draw a straight line. Well, if you want a straight line, then use a ruler. Okay. All right, so I have some orange here. I want to make sure that, again, that the paper is damp. It's drying really fast. I think I'm going to go back into some red. I like the red. And if you don't have one of these brushes, you can use a traditional watercolor brush. See, I got to leave it alone, let it do its own thing. I have a tendency to force things. Okay, what plays well with red and orange? Yellow. What plays well with yellow? Blue. Okay, I haven't used this blue. It's a lighter blue. Kind of looks like the green that was over here that got mixed. And then I'll go into this cobalt blue. Really pretty blue. I don't have much cobalt of anything because it's an expensive color, but I splurged. Okay, now I'm going to let that dry. When you outline it, it cleans it up because see, I have a lot of little jagged edges here, and I might want to make that into a flower, embrace it with just patterns of some sort. It doesn't really matter. But this is where expressing yourself, whether it's just outlining it like this, keeping it simple, or playing with Zentangles and patterns and it's up to you. We'll be back. I got a hairdryer and dried it so that I wouldn't be sitting here for too long. Once your paint is dry, you can use any kind of pen to outline it that you want. It does not have to be waterproof. So I have a variety of pens, but the ones that I carry with me almost all the time, this is a micro, so it's a small point, and then this 005 micron, or this micro, Uniball I micro. Inexpensive, get them at Staples. Well, I think you have to get them online now. I don't think I get them by the dozen. It's about $2 a piece. All right, so because this is one that I normally carry with me, I'm just going to start, and I brace my hand on my paper so that I can get a steady line. I don't worry too much about getting inside all the lines, but when I go in between something, I try to at least stay in between that. See, it got out of there a little bit, but that's fine. It's not that big a deal. But visually, from the look of it, it just cleans up your lines. So don't get too stressed about it. Turn your paper to where it's easy for you. I'm right-handed, so I have this gradual, this directional curve is easy for me as a right-handed. If you were left-handed, it would be this direction. So that's why if I'm doing something curved, it's just so much easier to embrace that natural bend of your hand by turning your paper. You don't have to, but I want you to know to try that, see if it helps. Okay, getting there. Don't forget to breathe. Kind of hold my breath when I do things sometimes. Whoops. Okay, so if you have any lines that show at this point, you can definitely erase them. I don't see any that bother me. But if you want to add detail to this, adding more line patterns, whatever, you can always create a repetition of different patterns. You can create polka dots. You can add, I mean, there's so many different things you can do. Stripes going different ways, zigzags in the stripes. If you want to doll up your whole page, then doll up your whole page. If you don't want to add any pattern on it, that's fine. But sometimes just playing with your materials and not doing anything serious is really therapeutic. And I love that. You can do this, just do this and kind of get lost in the process. Now, I didn't do this in my journal entry, but that's okay. Let me know if any of this is helpful. If you think you want to try it, give it a try. I'd love to see your work. Got to figure out. I think you can post a picture. Can you try to go to my community page on my YouTube and see if it lets you post a picture? There's so many things I'm learning that I had no idea about when I started this. And since my channel is growing, I want it to continue to grow, and I want to help you with what I can. So I'll continue playing with this and seeing what little patterns emerge. I just wasn't even thinking about anything specific. I just thought, oh, I'll make those circles a flower. And if that pattern continued, you'd see part of that there. And it's nice to play with the values. Like I might want this line solid so that it adds a little darkness there and a variety in lights and darks in my pattern. And because it's solid, I might just continue it on and make a third one just to frame in that section. Doesn't matter because it ran into the other. I might want to put some another heart inside that heart to add a little variety. Anyway, you get the picture. You can figure it out for yourself and decide if you want to play with patterns. But trying different things every day, developing a habit of drawing or painting every day, I think it's a great way to take care of yourself. Because when I've done a little bit of creating, it relieves a lot of stress. And if I want that to balance with what's below it, then I'll do another line of this. See, there's 3 of these. I can make 3 of these. Doesn't matter. I feel like I need some more dark in here somewhere. I'm going to put the dark behind these circles. Fill that in. And you can use a variety of pen tips. If you have a fountain pen, one pen will do skinny, thin, a variety of things. This is all pretty much one thickness, but again, that's why I carry my little bitty ones. So if I want to do little bitty swirls, tiny little things, I can do that with it. Kind of let it go off as though it's a pattern of fabric, and sorry, my brain had to take a time out. Okay. If you want to do the whole thing, do the whole thing. But I hope you enjoyed it today. You get something out of it. Try just playing with your paints to see if you can get a subtle shift of color with the blur from one color to another without that hard edge, without the blooming happening. This was soft enough when it dried that it still, to me, is very interesting. And man, it's just a neat way to continue your documentation in ways to balance color and pattern. And I hope you found something helpful today. There'll be a variety of things in the future. I'm going to continue to post weekly, and thank you so much for subscribing. Please hit the like button. Tell me what you like, what you'd like to see more of, and we'll go from there. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you next week.